Hello, welcome to Footprint. My name is Samuel Attah-Mensah. Today we are here to have a continuation of that discussion that we started with ex-President Agyekum Kufuor. And I know you enjoyed it, but today he's moving us into the 70s, 80s, 90s, and when he became president, his own reflections about his presidency and Ghana after Agyekum Kufuor. Papa, thank you once again.
Thank you.
I know it's been a long one, but the story is always better told by the people who experienced it. So we thank you for giving us your time. 69th Parliament had the likes of Agyekum
Mensah, everybody. Yeah, we had all sorts of people there. Very powerful.
And how did you relate to him? Well,
to Agyekum Mensah?
Yeah.
He was my brother-in-law.
Yeah, I mean in Parliament,
In Parliament, he was my senior, of course. I'm now getting to 82 by December. Agyekum was about 10 years older.
Whoa.
Yes. I was just 30 when I got into Parliament. But they were there and they were famed. Agyekum had advised Nkrumah. Economically, he was in Nkrumah's 7-year planning. Yes, he was like the chief architect. So people knew him, and then he had also won his laurels with the United Nations, working with R.K. Gardner in Addis Ababa, EC, and so forth. Everybody knew of Agyekum Mensah. Victor Osu, very distinguished. Talk of any of them.
And
Powell, one of the big six. In fact, 61 or 71, Buzia shuffled his government and moved Victor to the Attorney General's partner, Ministry of Justice, and Powell
became the foreign minister.
From Ministry of Education became the foreign minister, and Buzia retained me as deputy too.
So you worked with Powell as well?
Look at me, and I've got a pic.
Okay.
So with me tucked in behind him there.
Yes, you there. Oh, so that's Powell.
Yes, that's Powell.
Wow.
The big six. So all these people, and you are talking eloquence, Powell.
He was very quiet.
Very quiet, but brilliant in eloquence.
Spoken, yeah.
Very articulate, and also full of humor.
Yeah.
So if you make a serious statement, but change it with humor, so by the time he finishes,
Wow.
So I got exposed to all these people and had the privilege to virtually understudy them.
Wow. So this would lead us to 72. So you're there for 3 years. And then one day you woke up to...
Not 3 years, 2 years, 3 months.
Okay.
We took office September, I think.
Oh, okay.
69. January 72.
13 January.
We woke up to hear on the radio, a report for your own good to the next police station for your own security.
Wow, a certain to ACHEAMPONG'S. Okay, so January 72, you wake up and there's a coup d'etat. So life came to a standstill.
Virtually.
So you are all invited.
Everybody who was around, and
And what was the kind of conversations making the rounds? Who is this chap? Who is he?
Yeah, some people were asking. Apparently, he was a lieutenant colonel also, who had been sent to the West Indies, I think, on some military mission. Had come back, and then there was some vacancy, brigade command. Southern Brigade. There was a brigadier, Asare, who became chief in Gomoa. Some people went after the effect, of course. People thought Asare, who was already a brigadier, should have gotten that position. But somehow, this lieutenant colonel got promoted into colonel. It was just a fresh promotion. So when he did the coup, I think in his first statement, he had forgotten that he had become a colonel. He described this as the Lieutenant Colonel Kwesi Achampong or Kutu Achampong. So when this thing happened, people thought, but who is this man who done this? Then he came on the air full of attacks and insults and so forth and so on.
Really?
Yeah. But by then...
Who was he insulting?
Oh, this government, Buzia's government, who had taking all the little perks of soldiers away from them and so forth and so on. Most of the government had been picked up and then were put in detention in ACHEAMPONG'S forts. Some in Sawam, others in the regional prisons. But I found myself in ACHEAMPONG'S fort. In ACHEAMPONG'S fort, I think the first day or so, if you know ACHEAMPONG'S fort.
No, I know the building. I haven't entered yet.
Well, it's not a place I would want to bother to see inside. But there's a place they call the infirmary. Mm-hmm. On the first floor, overlooking the main road outside there. Mm-hmm. It's a hall that is it's not as big as my hall here. I think about 54 of us, including all the big names you could think of then politically. Pawili was there. Chief Dombo was there. Agyekum was there. I think Kwesi Lamte was there. Darocha, J.H. Mensah, Safo, wow. All the big names.
Arrested and detained.
And the bunker beds, double deck beds. Yeah. Some lined up this way, then with a small aisle in between. At the tail end, open bath, shower, about 6 showers. And then on the side, open toilet, about 4 buckets or so. Water closet. Can you imagine? Pauli could have been my father. His firstborn was older than me. Sleeping with these people you earlier only got a chance to read about. They were all staying. And then...
What was their offense?
They had been members of government that had been overthrown by this person nobody knew. And they were talking about their privileges and so forth and so on. Then pretending they could solve the economic problems. So, and we were kept there. I stayed in there for 1 year, 3 months. Wow. As the senior ministers, some 18 months.
No
and
charge.
We lived in the same place.
No charge. No charge.
No charge.
Anyway.
It was such an experience and so humiliating.
I can imagine. So, how long were you in jail?
I was there for 15 months.
15 months?
I went in 13 January of thereabouts at 72. Didn't come out till, I think, March 6th of 73. Yeah.
Wow. And so how did you manage life? We went back to Kumasi?
No. In fact, from prison, well wishes generally. They say, politics is a dirty game. Why do you bother? Go back to practice or get yourself some good position or perhaps even go back, travel out. Mm-hmm. Because the soldiers had come back and were listening over the airwaves. It didn't seem that these people were going to go away any day soon. But I had opportunity in prison to think and think again. Especially staying in prison with all these big people, brilliant people. You talked J.H. Mensah, there was also Safuodu, there was all sorts of people. Darocha. How come all these brilliant, well-meaning people couldn't hold power? And we allowed ourselves to be kicked out by somebody nobody knew. With what background? So I said, should you get the chance, stay the course. Perhaps your destiny would give you an opening to show how to do things. From those times.
Wow. So tell me again, unexpected, some guy comes on the scene, throws you behind bars for 15 months. Now, your own recollections of how life was in prison.
I've told you, I've used the word humiliating. I would say that was what it was. Because suppose some of the big people, they went to, say, with all due respect, the bathroom or toilet. We are humans. And open, no doors or anything. the noises and all that. Around the clock. Can you imagine? Huh?
For 15 months.
For 15 months, for most of us. And then the sad thing was, one day, I think we had been in there for about 3 months or 4 months. About 5 a.m. or so, we had some boots in that upstairs place on concrete steps. But the main entrance to the infirmary was pushed open, and there were some soldiers looking very rough and asking for Darocha's brother, called Moses, fine person, who wasn't even a politician in the active sense. Mm-hmm. His brother was the general secretary of PP, and that's how I believe he got attracted in it. But his main thing was that he was then, I think, expert in electronics or so. So he fixed the loudspeakers and things like that for us. But Moses never stood on a platform to address anybody, didn't seek any office. But the soldiers came in, and perhaps it was just to show Darocha power or to spite him. Why is Moses Darocha? It's 5 a.m. So everybody got nervous. What's happening? And they picked the poor man up, took him out of the cell, banged the doors. We didn't hear of Moses. They didn't bring him back. I think about 3 days or so, 4 days later, we were there hot afternoon when the director of prisons also called Darocha himself to go down to the office of the director, I think, the office downstairs. Then a few minutes later, we heard Darocha bawling, shouting, "Wekuno." So they tortured Moses Darocha to death.
Wow.
From that time on, the whole place became so gloomy. And there was nothing.
So they came to call him to just go and murder him.
Well, apparently there had been some alleged attempted coup. And somehow they made it seem like perhaps
was involved.
He knew something. But the man had been locked up with us. He wasn't outside. Mm-hmm. Then it came out that he had died. They killed him through torturing.
Wow.
And it spoiled the mood altogether. The mood wasn't good in any case, but it worsened us through the rest of our stay there. Wow. We felt that we were truly in danger. Mm-hmm. So that was it. Wasn't any good, but somehow the experience forced some of us to think again about the nature of power and politics of the country and how to do things.
Yeah. So when you came out, you went back to Kumasi, or you stayed?
No, I stayed in Accra.
Okay.
Even though everybody thought I would go back to Kumasi, mm-hmm. I resolved not to go, and I decided perhaps I should also look at business.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
Okay, so you started a business in Accra.
So I started businesses not only in Accra. For instance, some of my family were big in timber. An uncle, for instance, was perhaps the biggest timber man in the whole of Ghana. Had sawmills in Kumasi, in Takoradi. You know Takoradi, F Hills. Mm-hmm. Kumasi. I'm getting. And so weekends, I sometimes would drive to Takoradi to visit with them. And then at a point, I was going to work with him and his timber exports and all. But his younger brother, who is still alive, Agyekum Kufuor, who had operated separately from the big brother, who was the biggest person in timber all over the Western region, Asante, Tafa, had set up his own office and was exporting logs. And through my uncle, the younger one, got the feeling I could also do things my own. And I remember 73, it must have been about September, October. Some timber buyers from Britain came, and I got introduced. And my uncle said, but give him some contract to do a parcel of logs. And they said, if you could ship mahogany, we'll buy. And so that set me on. And I started traveling through Western region, all the way to Awaso, and then ran through Bebiani, down through Nkaye, Kumasi, looking for. And I managed to put together quite a parcel. I tell you, the results were so impactful to me. It changed my mood, which had been one of sadness. And, but then when the parcel came together, the inspectors then said, good grades, and they shipped. And then the returns, the revenue that came, the income, big.
You had a big man.
Yes, within just a few months.
But at this time, a number of you had been released from prison. And what were they doing? Those who would go back to, say, law practice, they had gone. The medics like Safuedu, Selby, and others. Selby put in prison too, I've forgotten. But everybody went back to their professions. We were generally professionals. And even the senior ones, they had gone back trying to mind their own business. I'm sure biding their time when perhaps they could go back to politics. But everybody had gone back to do what they were normally doing before they came to them. So tell me, what's your own take on Kufuor Acheampong's government?
They were a disaster. They didn't have any business, really. We are talking as a citizen. Where was their preparation for this thing they had taken upon themselves?
But we are told about Operation Feed Yourself.
Oh, please. Look, I would say the policies Busia left. Busia was philosophically, naturally, in value systems, a Democrat, respecter of humanity, respected the individual. And Busia was one of the first two Gold Coasters, highly educated, highly trained, as a teacher. When fancy his records are there for you to. And then you taught in Achimota in those colonial time, I'm sure in the 30s, 40s. And I'd gone to Oxford. He did his first degree externally in history, and then 42 gained admission to Oxford University, where he also did philosophy, politics, and economics for first degree, and then later followed it up with a PhD, 47, and was one of the first two Gold Coasters to be appointed by the colonial administration as district commissioners. Till then, all the DCs were Abrofo, white people. Yes. The first two, Kofi Busia and Ledu. Amishadai, I think he had studied chemistry in Cambridge, and Busia, Oxford. The first two ever. And then Busia...
So Ledu was...
Ledu.
For where?
He was a commissioner, a chemist from Cambridge.
I mean, commissioner for where?
No, DC, district commissioner.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I
don't
remember that.
District.
Okay.
Busia, I think, served as a district commissioner in Secondary or somewhere in Western region.
Okay.
Enche and around.
Enche, okay.
But the scholar that he was, he used his exposure there to prepare his thesis, I think using Secondary in the main. And that's what he used to do his PhD back in Oxford. And then from there, Legon was being set up. He became a sociology. He established the chair of sociology in Legon. Professor. Perhaps the first Ghanaian Gold Coast professor, Legon. They set up. And then worked his way. And then later, 51 or so, when the Legislative Council got elective, but including traditional representatives, Asante Man Council, brought him to Parliament, as council. Then 52 won his seat for Wenchi as Member of Parliament, or Member of Legislative Assembly. Then they didn't call it Parliament then. And virtually became the one-man opposition to Kwame Nkrumah. Till 54, the NLM was formed, and Achimangwa Biaja again sent BF Kusi as opposition to CPP, to join Busia. And then the Northern People's Party also brought, I think, about 14 MPs, led by Chief Dombo, Chief Yakubu Tali, Tolona. Adam Amandi, BK Adama, Jatokalo, Chief Abai Fakabo, all these smart Northerners. Incidentally, Baumia's father was also part of the NPP, Northern People's Party.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's Buzia's background. First professor, first this, first, and then eventually became prime minister. And this person comes around. What background did they have? So they came in and they talked
revolution language.
Revolution language. Talk is cheap. They talked of rural development. People say, Operation Feed Yourself. Look, to work a policy, to formulate a policy on agric in a heavily rural nation, then you don't take 1 year to do it and then see profit or bumper harvest within a year. Busia came to power 69. I was there, I was a member, talking rural development, and he set up the ministry, rural development, and made Lawyer Munufie from Techiman,
A.A. Munufie,
as the minister, and then appointed Dr. Kwame Safwedu, brilliant medic, as Minister for Agriculture. Why? Busia said the wealth of Ghana, or Gokus, to Ghana, had been generated from the rural parts. But what was there to show for the rural people? So rural development, because that's where much of the wealth came from. Open up the country there, do the feeder roads for the rural people, give potable water to them, good schools, health centers, electrification wherever possible. So the people would see the benefit and modernize agriculture, use extension services for them. That's what Busia did, to prepare, and then Safwedu, the scientist, medic, came in, and I remember in Parliament when Busia was launching the agric policy, saying that with this policy we're launching, we pursue it well, within 2 years Ghana would become self-sufficient in cereal production. And it happened. 73, we have been overthrown. But 73 was when the harvest started coming and Ghana started exporting maize. But then these these people had come on with glib talking Operation Feed Yourself. Some people were talking backyard farming and all that.
That didn't work?
The bumper thing had come.
Okay.
And with all due respect, we are a gullible society. Oh, these soldiers came and you see, they said Operation Feed Yourself. See the maize, we are even exporting maize to Burkina Faso and places like that. You do agric 6 months and you become a chief farmer. Wherever did it happen? But even till now, I know people give credit to Operation Feed Yourself. They should go back, especially the universities. They should research on the policies of Busia in terms of rural development and agric. And they'll see where the real vision, idea, implementation came from.
So, Papa, we will take a short break. When we come back, I would want to know how you received the first news of his removal, and I mean Kufuor Acheampong's removal, and then the anticlimax of who removed Kufuor Acheampong, General Akufu. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is The Footprint, and I'm here with President Agyekum Kufuor. It's indeed a pleasure to have him on this program. So this Kufuor Acheampong, 6 years of being in power and heading towards 1978. Everything was, as we say, manya.
Manya. See, they were. I call them some smartness. Late Benasco, I think he became agric
commissioner.
Talking Operation Feed Yourself. Had he ever done any even small plot of agric before? But he could speak fine.
Nice.
Dashing.
Nice, fancy man.
Kwame Ba was my classmate from secondary school. Kwame Ba.
That's a military man.
Yeah. Foreign. Kwame Ba. So I heard the names. I said, what? I mentioned them down the line. So they came in first as a National Revolutionary Council or something.
NRC, yeah.
But within a year or two, Acheampong felt, because he and a few of them were a bit senior, Colonel area, Kwame Band, they were youngsters, full of ambition. And I feared them. And so before anybody knew, he dissolved NRC and converted to Supreme Military Council and had removed some of the youngsters. And then the real corruption started. And then the incompetence. People who had talked so much, within 3-4 years, the economy was aground.
Wow.
Because really, they didn't have deep thinking. They just talked. And then...
So at this time, you were in business, but
I had gone into business.
You started thinking of...
I was exporting timber. I was into transport. I formed a company with a tenant of my mother's to try to manufacture bolts and nuts in Ghana. Wow. At that time, there wasn't anything like that. I got plots in the industrial area here, across the road from Dakmark's factory. We built the structure, but by 76 or so, 76, I broke away from that thing. And then I wanted to do a brick and tile factory. Got land where they are doing the military hospital or regional hospital in Kumasi Afari. The chiefs there gave me about 200.
As a Ghana brick and something.
Ashanti brick.
Ashanti brick.
They gave me about almost 200 acres of land full of clay to do. And I built the factory, got the machines from Brazil. And we were doing, so I was kept busy going and coming. But through that too, I had come to know Ghana. Because timber, for instance, exposed me to Western region, all over the place, from the coast right to the northernmost part of it, and through Asante, places I wouldn't have gone to.
True. Papa, we woke up sometime in 78 and heard of a coup d'etat against Kufuor Acheampong. How did you receive the news?
I wasn't too surprised. Apparently, there was a wait and somebody around Sunyani, they called him Shawcross. And Shawcross asked me, I don't know if you know, it's a family in Britain of lawyers, brilliant people.
No, I don't.
Shawcross. In fact, when Nkrumah, in his time around 58 or so, was deporting Alhaji Ahmadu Baba, the chief of Zongo in Kumasi, to Ahmadu Baba was Ghanaian, Gold Coaster, Kumasi properties and all that. It's a mix.
But deported him to Nigeria.
Yeah, because he was supported the opposition then. And Nkrumah was deporting him. And so the man went to court saying, no, he was a Gold Coaster. And so at that time, I think they engaged this British lawyer called Shawcross, brilliant man, even in Britain. But somehow, that lawyer too got deported or debarred from Nkrumah using Krobodis to block the man from London. So name Shawcross became like a household name then in Ghana. But this old man, Ghanaian old man around Sunyani, with support of Buzia, when Acheampong overthrew Buzia's government. Apparently the wits, it's reported the wits, out of exasperation, said, and Kunta Buzia went to me and for Parker pen, quality pen, Ancha. Was it Acheampong or the Barrow pen, so right from scratch, people who could see saw that this thing won't lead us anywhere. Acheampong couldn't do it. Buzia, with his Parker pen, brilliant man, couldn't do it. Even though it had been allowed only 2 years to solve it. How could Acheampong with Barrow, cheap then big, do the same? So some of us just didn't expect that it would go well under Acheampong's government. And truly within 3 years or so, the government sank into suspicions and allegations of corruption and misgovernance. Everything went
purely military.
Purely military, but using some people, some professionals.
Like who?
I shouldn't mention names.
Oh, I mean, it's public information, so
well,
it's not like
public information. Didn't mention.
No, we are
names.
recounting. We are recounting the story. So,
at a point, they used even very distinguished economists like Dr. Monikwe as
he was finance minister.
Finance minister. But ACHEAMPONG'S Mensah had brought him to work with him as principal secretary under Buzia. Then, when we were top, ACHEAMPONG retained him. Using people like Don Kufuor and others who had all been brought in by ACHEAMPONG'S Mensah under Buzia.
So Don Kufuor was also drawn into it. But he was an Ashanti man.
Oh, please, it's not tribe.
No, I'm just saying.
Buzia was never a tribalist. I am not a tribalist. If anybody should be.
No, but you have lived it. And at the highest level, we know that even in your presidency, you are not a tribe.
But that's the general run of Buzia's thing. No tribalism.
Okay.
Buzia's wife, Nam Moko, the typical guy and all that. But so there were Ashanti. Krobodise was an Ashanti man. But who was more CPP than Krobodise?
Yeah, I can imagine. So I'm looking at the ending of Kufuor.
Kufuor, as I say, didn't have the background.
Okay.
To succeed.
So he
was just an opportunist who saw some gap. And this was part of the reason I told you I was thinking, I wanted to find out how, given the welter of talent and experience, whether it's administration.
That must have been a painful experience for you guys.
And being kept in the cell, it wouldn't be as big as mine. Look at my sitting room.
But being under a leader you knew was not taking the country anywhere.
ACHEAMPONG?
Yes.
Oh, ACHEAMPONG, well, we are taking the step. Unfortunately, he was dragging the country into an abyss. So we saw it. But they have held power, the guns and so forth. Who were we to? We just watched. But by, I believe, 74-5, the country was seeing through him. That this man was a total misfit.
But he was a happy man.
But because in Akan there's a proverb. If
you didn't hear, there's a
I hope you can translate it for me.
Yes, you know.
You see, he was out of his depth, all over
your lips. You are drinking.
I didn't see. And then the statements that have been credited to him since he's going, all sorts of things. He just saw that government around 72 weakened a bit and grabbed the opportunity, seized the gun, and making it seem like what the nation needed was military barracks discipline. When the challenge, looking at the messed up economy, heavily overladen with debt, and when the international creditors were being attacked, Little Ghana, especially when we found some oil around Sopon, we had gone to debt talks to seek some relief. Unfortunately, just then, it was announced Ghana had struck oil. So the creditors immediately folded back and said, no, we give you only 2 years to 2 years. And that was the challenge Buzia was kicked out on. And ACHEAMPONG, where would he? And then he came here. Oh, you are indebted to international creditors all over.
But he didn't pay.
But he didn't pay. But what was the cost to the country?
No, he did.
The help that Buzia was trying to work out to get the, if you like, reprieve or whatever, to solve the problems. This man dashed everything.
But some people thought they were jokers.
ACHEAMPONG, yes, he was a joker. That's what I meant by the proverb by he was out of his depth.
He carried us through
and didn't feel any responsibility for the people at large.
And then quickly
the people suffered the economy. And then, unfortunately, there were some nice, good people within, but they were not.
They didn't have the space to perform.
Not just the space. They weren't political. They hadn't been exposed to managing anything. They were good soldiers. Later, Kufuor, may he rest in peace, for instance. They were all in there, carried along, saluting till at final stage they saw this man was leading them into perdition. And this is how they stayed.
Did you hear that he used to get drunk?
Agyekum?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised.
You never heard? No, I mean, did you hear?
Oh, that's rumor.
Yeah, I know. But again, I mean, we lived through the times until June 4th came.
Yeah. They came, but because they had all been sort of compromised, when they removed him, they didn't take any firm measures. They rather consigned him to his village or so to live like a village chieftain, with him making statements about everybody had girlfriends and so forth and so on. And that was where, again, another batch of youngsters, hot-headed and all, grabbed the opportunity. And
so this would be Bwachija and Rollins and Co.
Yeah, they too came on the scene.
So just at the time when you thought that was a good opportunity to,
Yeah, because 79, I went back to Parliament. The Kufuor's regime had agreed to return the country to civil rule, constitutional rule. And I was member of the Constituent Assembly again, 79.
In the process of making
preparing to go to election. I think, in fact, we were returned, but along the way, a lot had happened. That's how President Liman, for instance, got elected 79.
That's correct.
But Kufuor got removed by the youth, military youth.
Yeah, that's Rollins and Bwachija. Yeah.
But then within 3 months, somehow, they allowed the civil, but under very questionable circumstances.
So that 3-month period, we hurriedly had to do the political parties thing and go back for election.
The process was already in motion.
But
preparing the party, for instance, my party.
When was the split?
Well, just around then.
Yeah, that's
it was always in the works somehow. And PFP and UNC. Along the way, after Buzia thing, even from within prison, we sensed that there was some clash of personalities. And so when around about 75, 76 going, with People's Movement for Freedom and Justice and so forth formation, we saw a cleavage. And some this way, and when they were meeting, they didn't even consider bringing the other side. And so this thing got surfaced, I think about 78, 79. And then the parties were being formed. People tried all over the country to get the two sides to come back. I believe if we had agreed, we would have taken power.
I put you in a very difficult situation, people like yourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had close relationship with both of them.
Yeah, but so many well-wishers from around the country tried to patch up the field, but somehow the egos were so big.
Yeah.
And we couldn't make it, and then we ended up PFP, UNC, and then of course CPP reawakened and formed the PNP, bringing Dr. Liman up, and then in the election, 79 he won.
Okay, so 79 he won, and governed up until 81 or 80.
81 December.
Yeah, 81.
New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
was when the coup happened.
Wow,
it was such a sad thing.
That was. Were you excited?
No. We couldn't. One couldn't see far with the outcomes, but say power abhors vacuum. See, along the way, 79, 80, the economy was very bad, and it looked like late President Liman was thinking of coming to terms with the multilaterals, IMF and But his party had a youth wing that had dug in against any cooperation with those things. And they wouldn't. And then the suspicion started and rumors and so on. So as things turned out, when the 81 coup happened, some of the youth of his party were already implicated. They were in there with the coup makers. Yeah.
Wow.
So Liman was overthrown.
Is that how the likes of Ebotewia...
I wouldn't know the details, but
clearly Ebotewia ended up being there.
The impression was there strongly that the youth, or many of the youth of PNP, I think that was their party.
Yeah, PNP, yeah.
Were part of the coup that happened.
Wow. Well, I mean, I remember Johnny Hansen and the rest.
Lawyer Johnny Hansen.
Yeah, Lawyer Johnny Hansen.
There was another Dr. Hansen.
Yes.
I didn't know before.
Who all ended up.
They all went in there.
Wow. Okay, so we are talking to President Agyekum Kufuor. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is The Footprint. So 81 December, so started 82?
The announcement came over the air that all members of parliament should report to the nearest police station for their own good or...
At this point, you're not thinking.
They didn't discriminate between government side MPs and the opposition side. They said all members of parliament. So for a few days, some of us who were not part of government were trying to stay away. But then the report or whatever, the order kept coming on the air and with threats. So eventually, I considered the situation with my wife and said, look, these people could be crazy. So let me report, whatever. So I went to the Cantonment police station. And it just happened that later Gama too was reporting. So the two of us, they put us on some bench with some public people standing out there looking at us like animals in zoo.
Oh, no.
So we sat there quietly and chatted. Hey, what's happening? We just couldn't understand because we weren't part of the government that had failed.
Yeah.
But they said all members. So we sat there. I think we were there for about 2 days.
So Dr. Agama was with which party?
The interesting thing is, at a point, our party, after we lost it, UNC, we formed what came to be called All People's Party. We came together. Then after losing the power, we came together. And I think Agama was member of All People's Party, even though Burden, they were all part. So the friendship we had resumed friendship again. So I was there, Agama was there, and a few others. They kept us there and the police, we said, what's happening? They said they hadn't received any order, so we should be there. And then the next day or two, they brought a pickup some morning, and we were all put in the buckets and driven from Cantonment's police all the way on the high street to Usher Fort again. So my second visit to the Usher Fort. Oh yes. And Agama, and then along the way into the high street, some people started even booing us. Oh, Jolo, that sort of thing.
Oh, Julo, that's the Ga word for thief.
Yeah. And we were taken in, and then I had my second visit with the infirmary of Usher Fort. We were taken in there, but I had become a postgraduate of the place.
Wow.
So we stayed in there. Again, we were locked up, but this time I think we were about 36 or so in there. Some were government members and some were opposition. Then about almost a week or so later, a message came on the air. There was a small radio that government had decided to release about 36 people. It turned out most of us, about 34, were opposition. Just 2 were government people. The 2 were Professor Bene and Mr. KSP Jantwa,
GSP, John,
who had been High Commissioner in London before. So they were, but government members they held tight. But most of us opposition people, we were released. And I remember when we came out of the prison gates, Mr. Deku, who was an elder of this alliance of parties, all people, and very close with Victor Osu and Darocha, he had come with a bus standing, and then he received us and said we should go with him. They took us to the police, information officer, so in the headquarters. There's a big office there. And there they said they wanted to take our details, the police. Our wives had followed there. They wouldn't let us go till our wives surrendered our passports. So they took our passports as if we were a security risk. Took our particulars and then they released us. And so the coup again took us from there to Victor Osu's house. Same day they released us. And there, Victor and the elders, Darocha, of course the coup and others, the elders were there. And they told us that the coup makers had sent Brigadier Nunu Mensah, who is still alive, to talk with them, that they were thinking of doing something like a national government and that they would want our side to be part of it. Nunu Mensah must have convinced the elders. So the elders advised us that when we got invited, we shouldn't say no. We should cooperate for the good of country and all. So it's okay. And from there, they allowed us to go to our homes.